But here's Adam and Andy after one really exhausting day at Aquarius during Mission 31.
Okay. It's like 9:30. Yeah. 9:05. Tonight we were hammering the coral, would you like to say? It's using an instrument called amplitude modulated for
Yes, I got it right.
Kind of a mouthful, we just go with ham. What it does is it hits these corals with a really intense pulse of light, and then measures the amount of light that is reflected back off of this coral. Dinner. Delicious chicken breast.
That's our breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We've had a lot of fun down there. I think some of us actually blame being narked, although I think technically that's at 3 atmospheres, that's a little exaggerated. But, I'm sorry, 20 meters for those who don't speak atmospheres. But we did have a pretty phenomenal time down there. And after, for those of you who dive, you know what we're talking about. But when you dive 6, 8, 10 more hours a day, you are pretty tired. And the last thing that, as a French person, let me take a step back here. When I get asked what the hardest part of Mission 31 was, it wasn't going to the bathroom. And we won't go into that tonight, unless there's a question on Twitter about it. It wasn't the fact that we were away from family for so long. It wasn't the humidity or many of the other things, lack of light and all that. It was how awful the food was. I defer back to that picture of my grandfather with the bottles of wine and the nice steak in front of him. So, on to other topics. One of the things that I noticed is when we were down there for a long period of time, the animals who, when you first get down there or when you're diving down, are very shy, very skittish, don't particularly like being invaded by aliens, bubbly, ugly creatures that obviously are gangly, not very coordinated underwater. When you can spend time with them, sitting there, they start getting familiar with you. They start inviting you into their neighborhood. They start allowing you to come in to their world and to their lives. And that allows you to see things that normally you don't see. For example, this cute little spotted eagle ray, which from what I understand are pelagics, or they certainly are traveling animals, and don't usually stick around. It was so unusual, even our friend Stephen Fink, who might be in the crowd tonight, had come down to come visit us for 45 minutes, ended up staying 10 minutes in the habitat, had to say goodbye because he ran after these wonderful creatures to take photos. Because it was such an amazing and unusual experience to have animals that travel stick around for a full 31 days out of curiosity. And to me, they were our guardian angels. But our guardian angels sometimes got a little bit too curious. And here I am, or I don't know if it's me actually from the back, it's hard to tell. But we were taking samples, taking pictures, and more than once, those animals kind of got jealous. And I know I'm anthropomorphizing, but I believe it, so it's true. And they got so jealous that more than one time I had one of these animals come up to me and slap me on the back of the helmet, saying, "Hey, stop paying attention to him, pay attention to me." And it was those little moments that made every day so magical. Now, on the second half of Mission 31, we had a lot of activities around sponges. And no offense to sponge biologists in the room, I really didn't pay attention to them before. I had no idea there were hundreds of species of sponges just there in that area. And I learned so much about how dynamic sponges are, how much they filter the water, how integral they are to as a key species to really gauge the health of a reef. Now they do give certain things. They give habitat, they give that filtration system that's so important to the reef. But what I noticed and what I learned from our scientists is that they also tell us a lot more about the variations in temperature and how that water that comes from the upwellings and brushes over the coral reef shuts down the metabolism of that coral reef temporarily as that water is colder. And it's only when the water gets warmer again that activity starts going. And if we weren't down there for a full lunar cycle, if we weren't down there for 24 hours at a time monitoring this, it's much harder to figure these things out. And thanks to the sponge proctology exam, are you sensing a theme here? Marine biologists are a little kinky. We were able to tell all sorts of things, including particulate matters, hydrocarbons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I won't bore you with that tonight because I know we only have an hour. And this cute little critter, do you know what this one is? Come on, it's the kissing shark. Oh my God, you actually believe me on that. It is a nurse shark, sorry. But being down there and being able to get closer and closer during those 31 days, all of a sudden we were invited into this amazing display where here they're at a cleaning station, literally underneath the habitat. And we were nose to nose with these animals that normally would scatter between the grouper and the nurse shark, and then of course all the bait fish, et cetera, et cetera. We were able to get really close and see amazing things with the cleaning station that normally you can't see. It's like seeing dogs and cats getting along. Weirdest thing ever. Now, this is something rather special. And I believe Kip might be in the audience as well. He was shooting, there's a whole group of Kip fans over there. Hey Kip, I don't know where you are, but it's too dark. Hey, good to see you, thanks for coming. We were with Adam and Andy and Mark and Ryan. I don't know I think Ryan's in here too, Mark probably isn't, but it's 6 of us. Hey, oh my God, are you all from Mission 31? Is there even a visitor in the house? We were really lucky. There was one night where it was very unusual. There was electricity in there. I couldn't describe it as anything else, but really unusual activity. You could feel it. You could feel that something crazy was going on outside. And then when we looked out the viewport, this is at 10:30 at night, we were all about to bunk out, almost 11 o'clock at night, turned off the lights, and a permit was coming by and acting weird, probably got hit by a shark, and we saw reef sharks circling around, and they're fairly unusual in that area. We saw fish just going crazy, tarpon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And parked right above the light, right above the viewport, was a Goliath grouper, just sitting there. We called her Sylvia. And we fell in love with that Goliath grouper. But that Goliath grouper was always hanging around. There were two Goliath groupers hanging around. One was Jeek, J-Y-C, after my grandfather's initials, and one was Sylvia. And Sylvia was very smart. Parked herself right above the viewport with a light that attracted fish, and every so often you'd see a whole cloud of scales clouding our view. But one thing that I had never seen in my lifetime is what happened here. And I'm not going to describe it, so here we go.
Alright, come back. He's coming right at us. Oh, did you see that?
Oh my God!
Right at the window. There's the shark. Did you get it?
Let's see how this looks.
He's coming right at us. Oh, did you see that?
Oh my God!
No, one more time to make Adam and Andy sound really silly.
Did you get it?
Okay, so to make scientists that excited, it must be something special.
Oh, did you see that?
Oh my God!
I was kidding.
Did you get it?
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
He's right there in front of the window.
He's right in front of the window.
Sorry guys, I get the job on that one. Goliath grouper don't eat barracuda, as far as I know. That was a 5-foot barracuda going by Sylvia. To me, and I'm sure my scientific friends will correct me if I'm wrong, but to me that was much more of territorial behavior. And to see a Goliath grouper, which basically couldn't even gum you to death, biting a barracuda that we all know is, a twitchy animal. They're amazing creatures, but not something that you want to stick your finger in its mouth. I was blown away. I mean, I've been diving since I was 4. I have never seen something like that. And that's a key indicator to me of how special it is to live on that final frontier, because it gives you that insight and that luxury of time. Now, this is not Adam and Andy killing grouper. These are actually decoys that they were using for, and I had the privilege of helping with them with that, predator-prey behavior. And the reason why that's so important is we need to understand that when we go out there and deplete natural resources, it shifts the dynamics of a coral reef. And we needed to know a bit more about what happens when the predators are gone and the prey are left to forage. I want to get to a little more stuff, so I'm not going to harp on that too much either. But at the end of the day, being able to park yourself like Liz is here next to, that's Sylvia actually, Sylvia, and really share some good times. That's her Facebook page, by the way. But let me tell you something. Goliath grouper, when they're sick and tired of you, just like any neighbor or a friend or a family member, will tell you so. And Sylvia's no exception. Sylvia and Jeek, when they were tired of us, would bark at us. How many of you have ever had a grouper boom at you? A couple of you? 1, 2? It's really hard to see, but I imagine the clapping is about 5 or 6, 10 of you. Well, for those who don't know, it's time for you to leave when they bark at you. Because it's such a powerful boom that it actually temporarily stuns its prey as it aspirates its prey. And all this is within a blink of an eye. You literally cannot see this happen. But when you're standing in front of that creature that's 600 pounds and says, okay, time for you to leave, it hurts. It resonates in your chest cavity. And it resonates all the way down to the tips of your fins. Ah, what a turn on. We also had the amazing privilege of using some of the cutting-edge technologies, such as this prototype camera from 2 engineers from MIT called the Edgertronic, in honor of Dr. Harold Edgerton, a stop-motion photography guru. As a matter of fact, if you've ever seen in the past the bullet passing through the apple, that is Dr. Harold Edgerton's work. And this particular camera is about the size of, well, I don't know what that would be. You can't say a bread box somewhere, no one ever uses them. But very small. Can shoot up to 20,000 frames a second. And can capture things that the naked eye would never, or a traditional camera would never be able to capture. Now this was a prototype. And I'm going to show you some video, and I'll talk over it just because it's more fun to do so. But look at the image and how sexy and silky and smooth and beautiful and romantic it is when you can shoot it in slow motion. This is about 800 frames a second. Now, I did say it was a prototype, and it was never really shot underwater under the circumstances that we did. And we had to do a little jury rigging, such as Grace, our MIT graduate, standing on her head while we're shooting, while I'm manning the laptop so that I could pull the trigger. And this is indicative of any kind of prototype, but it allowed us to see things such as gobies spitting grains of sand, all 154, or a mantis shrimp stalking its prey, and just missed the goby. Literally, that animal has a punch as strong as that kind of animal, this mantis shrimp, has a punch as strong as a 22 caliber bullet. Probably why you don't see them in many aquariums. And so fast that you would never be able to see it with the naked eye. Here's the goby again with his grains of sand. barfing up his home. Now bear in mind that these are reject shots. These are shots that we show people so that they can get an idea, but we don't want to steal the thunder from the upcoming documentary. So there are some even more amazing shots coming. But it gives you kind of a taste, an idea of why we need to spend time underwater, to learn more about what's happening there. Not so much for the critters, although that's very important. For the science, of course, but for the human-ocean connection. And that leads me to my next point. For the first time ever on a Cousteau expedition, we were able to reach out for 31 days live to the world and show the importance of that ocean connection. And Terry had alluded to this. This was an experiment, to be honest. I went out on a very long limb, and our supporters went out on a very long limb to see if human beings, if people around the world really cared about the oceans anymore. Well, I'm happy to say that not only did we reach some 70,000 students worldwide at the end of the Mission 31 in all 6 continents, from China to India to France and Eastern Europe and Africa and North and South America. And right here in Florida, we reached out to some amazing students. But we were able to have that connection to press, to other people who were able to propagate the story of the oceans. And for the first time ever, I just got the numbers back, we had a reach of over 20 billion in press impressions. That's... So it was well worth the blood, sweat, and tears, because to me, that's a win for the oceans. That's a win for our future generations. That's a win for the circulatory system that connects all life on this planet. And we were able to do that with social media and, of course, with our mobile devices, because we had Wi-Fi at the bottom of the ocean. I mean, right here I'm sharing with some students, Jeek, who was the laziest grouper that I've ever seen, laying on the bottom of the ocean with one of our aquanauts. How do you do that? And of course, there were live cameras. Aquarius is equipped with live cameras, so we turned them on, we put them on our website, and invited the world to check us out. Hey, you want to see what aquanauts do on a daily basis? Well, let me tell you something. That was probably the worst idea I've ever had. Because one day, I was sitting there in front of the camera, quietly taking a rest, and I started sneezing. And next thing you know, my phone is beeping off the hook with text messages. I look down. It's my mother. Are you okay? Are you sick? Do we need to send a doctor down there? I love my mom, but sometimes it's a little crazy. I thought we were getting away from society down there. But the point is that we were able to invite folks who were curious about the oceans, curious about Aquarius, curious about what we were doing down at the bottom of the oceans, 6 people, plus the 36 that were supporting our efforts. And beyond that, we also want to reach other social circles. And I know one of these amazing folks is in the audience today, Holt County, right up there on the top left. But we also had Adrian Veneer, Megan Summerholder, we had all sorts of amazing VIPs, Bert Stone, you guys know him. Sylvia, my father, et cetera, Doc Johnson. I'm not going to go through the whole list. But the reason for that, and the reason I felt it was extraordinarily important to have divers come down and visit us, who are not necessarily part of this inner circle, the ocean folks, was because we need to reach beyond our inner circles. We need to reach that broader audience that doesn't necessarily know about the oceans or Aquarius or why we're doing crazy things like this and how amazing the oceans are and how important it is to each and every one of us on this planet. And so these folks were able to help us reach out to those who we just simply don't have that reach. Of course, we were also able to do fun things like paint underwater. Wyland, are you here? No? But we were able the first time to paint at Aquarius.